What's going on, everybody? How you guys doing? I hope everybody's having a good night. It was frustrating last night to get a lot of stuff right and not get to profit so much from it. I had a good night on FanDuel, finished 14th in the Monster, and had some deep runs in the $55 and other stuff, but nothing on DraftKings for me last night. It was a rough one, but a good one on FanDuel. So let's get after it tonight. So here's what I'm doing basically. I'm going to say some players' percentages. Now they're going to change drastically because I have to finish editing my lineups after this. But I'm very high on the Blue Jays. I understand that they will be the highest owned. I can get different with my secondary stacks. I can even get different within their stack. And I just don't think we need to worry about ownership all that much today as it relates to hitting. I think that you should be, of course, maybe you don't do it the typical way. You play the bottom of the order too. I totally agree with that. You could do a Blue Jay stack without Vlad if you want to get really different, although Vlad is my favorite play, or one of my favorite plays on the slate. Maybe probably my favorite. And I'm just looking at the ownership for the hitters, and I just think it's going to be spread out enough. They're going to be the most popular. You're going to have double-digit ownership on probably some Braves and some of the Blue Jays, and that's pretty much where most of the ownership is going to go. So anything else, and even in those, you're talking about some guys at 10% or even less in some cases. I am starting to come on to a little bit the idea of the Dodgers tonight to take a shot there, but it's not my favorite. My favorites are the Braves, Yankees, Toronto, and Philly. I think Yankees are a little higher for me than the Braves, given that they are going to be lower owned. I like that the lineup that they're rolling out there, and it's a really good spot, good hitting weather in Minnesota. And I think it's a spot that people aren't really on as much, especially because some of the pricing. So if you can make that work, that makes a lot of sense. I'm using guys like Gavin Sheets, Danny Mendick as some value guys to fit in, Luke Voigt. All those as my favorites of the values, because I think you're going to need some values. And then, I mean, actually, all of the Padres are cheap enough to where you can certainly use them for some value, with the exception of Machado is the only expensive one. But everybody else, Mazzara batting sixth at 2K. I sort of like that as well, and I think that all of these guys are definitely in play. And I don't want to go crazy. Taijuan Walker's only given up one home run. He's actually been really good this year. Forget about people saying, oh, he sucks because his K percentage sucks. They don't know anything. Don't listen to these guys who are just spouting out random, stupid advanced stats that really aren't helping anybody. And they're wrong for the most part. And they're not looking at what's actually happening in the games. You say, oh my God, Taijuan Walker's been getting crushed this year. I just heard that on a show. Taijuan Walker has he's given up 3 runs in a game once. Like, you know what I mean? He's got a 2.3 ERA. He's given up 1 home run. Crazy. How do I decide my stack exposures? I decide the teams that I like the most, that I factor in ownership, and the teams that I like the most. I don't. That's pretty much it. I don't really know how to directly. If there's a direct way to answer that question, I don't know what else it would be. I want the teams that I think have the most potential to not only to score the most runs, but the teams that are going to do it with hitting the most home runs. Like the Yankees, for example, hit the most home runs of any team in baseball. They're a really good stack option. Toronto, tons of power in that lineup in a good matchup. But again, I don't know that I love the matchup against Keller as much as I like the Yankees matchup. So I'm probably going to end up a little higher on the Yankees by the time all is said and done. But which stacks again do I like again? I just went through them. I like Toronto, the Yankees, Atlanta. I have some love for Chicago. I like Philadelphia and Milwaukee as getting weird stacks. And I like the Angels as a mini stack. That's what I'm doing with that. My top pitchers, I'm going to look at my ownerships. Rodon, Verlander, Darvish, Skubal, but that's probably going to change because I'm a little worried if there's an early delay in that game, it could really mess things up for me. So I do want to get exposure to Kyle Wright and Manoah. And then I'm going to do some dumpster diving and play guys like Marquis, Bradish, Mitch White, and Springs. Mostly I'll do those together and just go for the absolute hammer stacks. Hopefully my pitchers get me 15 points each. And even if it's an ugly one, that's what I'm willing to gamble. You have to do that to win tournaments. So that's what I'm doing. Did we have a Brewers lineup? Because I wanted to see how that shaked out before I commit to the Brewers. The Brewers still haven't really. Come on, Brewers, get it together. Your game starts in 2 hours. If you can't really, there should be a rule. There should be a punishment if you don't release your lineups on time, that you're forfeiting a run or something. You can't have the MLB doing this, like MLB and NBA being part of either FanDuel or DraftKings and owning parts of these companies. And yeah, we have to wait on these lineups. Just come on, get those freaking lineups out. It drives me nuts. Sorry, that's my little vent for the day. I like Chicago Cubs, but I don't mind if you want like a one-off of some of the cheap White Sox. Mendick and Gavin Sheets would be the ones that I would probably go to, just because they're so cheap. They fit into position. Mendick fits in a position I don't have a lot of cheap options, and Sheets has enough power to hit it out even on a day without great hitting weather. So I am higher on the Cubs. In terms of individual players, I have Contreras as my most owned catcher. And make sure you double check what your catchers and your stacks, because you've got both Contreras priced within 100 of each other on DraftKings, and that could be a little tricky. But on DraftKings, I have Contreras as my top catching option. I have Vlad as the number one first baseman. Big shocker there. I have LeMahieu as my top second baseman, but I'm getting some Espinal obviously as well in my stacks, some Morel, some Altuve, some Albies, etc. Third base, I like Chapman. I am using a little bit of the Dodgers. Like we have Alvarez at 2,100. Look, I'm just gonna, where I really need to punt, I'll take my shot there and hope that he gets me 7-8 points, because it does allow me to get what I want elsewhere. Really like in the outfield, I have a lot of Judge, Stanton, Aaron Hicks is the cheap option I'm using with the Yankee stacks. Using Zimmer in my Toronto stacks. I think you could make an argument, whether it's Zimmer or Tapia, either one of those guys. But I personally like Zimmer a little bit better tonight. I think he'll be lower owned, so I'm going to actually go that route. And I did actually need the couple hundred extra savings some places. So he's also a good outfielder. So if they're up by a bunch, if the stack is going off, he should stay in the whole game because he's a good defensive outfielder. So that's my thought with that one. Springs doesn't do anything wrong. He's a young pitcher. I have no interest at all in the Cardinals. Definitely would rank near the bottom for me in terms of stacks. I actually like Springs better than I do the Cardinals. I don't like the matchup for him directly, but I don't see any reason to play the Cardinals here in Tampa Bay. Terrible hitting park. Springs is absolutely awesome. He gave up home runs in 2 games. One was to the Yankees and one was in Texas. And they were both solo home runs. He only hasn't given up more than 3 earned runs in a start or in an outing. And I would not stack a team like St. Louis tonight, no matter what. So they're a 0 for me. If it happens, it happens. It's baseball. There's randomness to everything. You could say Seattle could score the most runs, and they're going up against Verlander. So sort of generally, that's what I'm doing. A lot of the Yankees on FanDuel, the difference is really minimal to me. Again, using Wright, Rodon, mixing in the top guys, but Rodon is the one I'm using the most. Rodon, Verlander, and it's turning into Wright for me, which I don't really love as much as I've got it. So I'm probably going to lower a little bit of my Wright exposure and maybe switch over to a little bit of Manoah over there. Some cheap bats that stand out on FanDuel. Baez he's cheap. He's cheap, fair enough on DraftKings as well. Baez, Teoscar Hernandez is way too cheap. Gavin Sheets again. Laureano, if you're not playing White, it's not like White is necessarily going to go out there and throw a no-hitter, so I don't mind Laureano's price. Matt Duffy, a little bit of to use with maybe Ohtani and Trout, get a little mini stack going there. Are the Mets contrarian? Yes, and I think they're a really bad option. That's my take on the Mets. No interest in the Mets. I don't think you need to worry about being contrarian so much on this slate. No, I don't lock Jim Steele. Anybody who's familiar with me on big slates, there's almost no reason in baseball, especially when you have everybody so close together, to lock in a certain player. A pitcher would be the one to do it, but that's like a 5-gamer or a game where somebody's mispriced or something like that. You don't lock is a dumb word that guys like to use, who like to talk like a DFS guy, which like they do on the other shows. And that's what we want to be away from at True DFS. We really want to be different. We don't want to talk about, I see it all the time. I do shows with guys. I'm locking that guy in. I'm locking that guy in. They name 30 guys they're going to lock in. You can't lock in 30 guys. That takes away the meaning of lock. Lock means that's the only guy you're playing. That's it. You're not doing anything else. And I just don't think there's any such thing as lock buttoning, especially in baseball. Definitely for hitting. Pitching, every now and then I will lock button a certain pitcher. Like yesterday with Carrasco was my only pitcher I used on FanDuel. But I only played 4 unique lineups basically, so that's why. Joey Gallo batting ninth. Hey, there's contrarian for you. Go ahead and play him. I actually, even with my love for the Yankees, I have no Joey Gallo in the lineup. You could use him on FanDuel, of course. That's why K9's bringing it up. K9 is a FanDuel expert, and he definitely makes more sense on FanDuel than he does on DraftKings to me, just because of the price, I guess. But even still, I don't see. I'm not playing a lot of number 9 hitters on FanDuel. I generally don't like to go past number 7 in the lineup if I can help it on big slates, because you just are losing an at bat basically to the rest of your teammates all the time. So it's tough. He's really cheap though. I mean, he's another one, but you're not playing a one-off of Joey Gallo. That would be terrible DFS play. If you're playing Joey Gallo, you need to have at least some sort of correlation. Also, just to mention, like, Joey Gallo is cheap because he basically can't hit. He can hit home runs, but he is definitely, I mean, what is he hitting this year? Let me just pull up his numbers, because he has been, I mean, he's like become like a 100, one of the worst hitters in recent baseball history. He's hitting 176 with 6 home runs. Not a whole lot to be excited about with Joey Gallo in that sense. He does walk some, which is pretty bad for DFS as well. But he does have, like, the power is still there. It's just totally random at when it comes with him, it seems like. And you just never the kind of guy you want to one-off unless he's batting a little higher in the order. Well, he's batting 9th. When he's batting 6th or 7th, you can absolutely one-off Joey Gallo all day long. But 9th is just crazy. And you're losing the correlation if you're not getting him with somebody else. I like Will Smith if I'm spending for another catcher. If I'm going down, which I'm not doing as much as I thought I was going to be, I like Stassi, I like Rushman. And I'm just going to show you some percentages. I've got 10% Springs. I've got 35% Rodon on DraftKings, 30% Darvish on DraftKings. That'll probably be more like 20 by the time we're done. Verlander at 28, probably be more like 35 by the time we're done. Skubal at 28, which is probably going to be more like 15. Wright and Manoah each at 15, which will probably each be closer to 20, because I'm going to have to get rid of some Skubal and some lineups, just if I'm worried about the weather there, which reminds me I'll get out of here at 6:30 today. And I will be in and out sparingly tomorrow. So I'm going to get my stuff done, but I can't promise to have everything done. And no matter what, hit me up in Discord, tag me. I will make sure to answer you guys before lock. I just have a lot of the same family stuff that I've got to do every week. So that's what I've got. I do have some Kyle Bradish love. I have some Marquee and Bradish lineups. Now, look, these look gross, okay, right? But if no pitcher puts up 30 tonight, and these guys are capable of putting up 15, Marquee has a leash to go 110 pitches. We've seen Bradish throw as many as 94 pitches, I believe, or maybe 91 was his top. That's enough against the Cubs if you get it right. So there is some value in doing that on DraftKings. I don't think you can even think about these guys on FanDuel, but on DraftKings, absolutely, I would be playing some of those guys along with some of Mitch White and Springs. But they're not ideal. There's great spend ups. My guess is 2 of them probably go off tonight. My favorites are Verlander and Rodon, but it's not by a ton. And I think Manoah at no ownership, Wright and Skubal are all very interesting as well. It sounds like Milwaukee's lineup's out. Good news for me, K9, because I'd like to see what that is. I do have some I like Ranger Suarez as a pitcher. I think he's having some real trouble with his release point. So I'm going to attack it when I see it. I don't love it as a full stack. I like it more as a mini stack, but I do think that, people don't realize Milwaukee's the second most home runs in the major leagues right this year. Pretty shocking actually, but definitely right there. Absolutely not sleeping. Diaz Wolfpack. I'm not sleeping on Trevino. That guy's shown some pop lately, and he fits in as my cheap catcher for my Yankee stacks, but I'm not using him outside of my Yankee stacks. He is my favorite cheap catcher though, in my Yankee stacks, and that's where I'll use him. Urias Taylor, thank you for dropping that in, K9. Urias Taylor, Yelich, McCutchen, Renfroe. Oh, Renfroe's back, but we didn't get Adames back, so I'm going to have to change my FanDuel lineups. I thought Adames would be back today. That was what we had heard was going to happen. Not happening, obviously. I keep thinking more about this with the Angels. Now, the thing is, we all love this talent, and this is another guy who people are going to play some of tonight, but not much. Garrett Whitlock has great stuff. Garrett Whitlock, I don't know what's going on with him. He stopped striking anybody out since his last game with the Angels, actually. And now that they've seen him once, I'm just sort of interested to see how that plays out, because I think you're going to see wide ranges with some of these young studs. I can say the same thing for Kopech. Garrett Whitlock, people look at his last game. Oh, he was okay. He had 14 and a half fantasy points. He pitched 6 innings and gave up no runs and didn't strike out a batter. That's like almost impossible to do. So I'm on the side of if he's having trouble with his strikeout pitch, Trout and Ohtani certainly seem like viable options, along with Stassi, Walsh, and Duffy for value. So I don't mind that. You could throw Marsh in there too as well. All right, let's see what else we've got here. Yeah, not my favorite. It's a better lineup than it could have been from them, but it's still not my favorite. I like that they're batting Taylor second, actually. I think Taylor gets a big boost in front of Yelich in general. But that's another game that I just had targeted. I think that I'm still going to try and stick to my favorites. And there's, by the way, really good hitting weather in Baltimore. I'm a little surprised the run total is not a little bit higher. And if you want to mix in one other crazy pitcher, though, both pitchers in that game, I could that's one of those games where I like the pitchers a little bit. I like the offenses a little bit. So that's what I'd be getting a little bit of exposure to both. I didn't actually end up getting to Keegan Thompson because I feel like the leash isn't long enough for me. I'm just trying to take a quick look at his most. I just don't think it's quite good enough for me, but he's certainly viable. I mean, this is a weak offense and offense that strikes out as well. So I don't mind even if you want to go to there, but I do think mostly you want to spend your night. If you're going to gamble on a spend down, I would just play it with another spend down and go for the hammer stack and, get all the Braves and Blue Jays together or something like that, or the Yankees. But I would personally prefer not doing that and double spending up. That's what my big buy-ins are going to represent. The SaberSim projections are all updated. I'm guessing you mean Sheets's. Sheets's shouldn't be any different. I don't see anything that would have really changed much except for, I guess with the Milwaukee. It doesn't look like he just posted in Discord. He's not going to be able to get it before lock, but he does. I mean, there's nothing that's going to change except for the Milwaukee lineup. So that's I don't think in basketball, things change drastically when you see it. So it matters, but really getting up to the minute updates of projections really don't mean all that much. And projections in baseball don't really mean all that much in general, except for pitching to some extent. Hitters, it's just a silly number that I just use it to tell me who's going to be owned. When I see a guy with 1 point better projection at 2K, and they're both at 2K, that guy and one guy's going to be 20% owned, the other guy's going to be 2%. Just play the guy who's 2%. I mean, it's baseball, and those guys are 2K for a reason usually. Anyway, let's move on. Pop in any more questions, any more thoughts, because that's pretty much all I've got for this baseball slate. In terms of what I'm doing. And I'm just worried about the one thing I'm going to hang on to that I want to get out of here maybe a little bit earlier than usual is I want to find out an update on this weather just to make sure, because it feels really bad to try to even invest at all in weather on a slate like this. And it looks like the Detroit game is looking a little bit worse for the pitching. So I'm probably going to come off Skubal in my big buy-in, and that's just the way it's going to be. Unfortunately, that means I guess I'm going to go. I think I might go to Manoah. I know it's not a great matchup for Manoah. I just love this kid. He's big. He can strike out anybody. Even you put him in a tough strikeout matchup, he still crushes these guys. So I'm going to get myself some Manoah. And I think Darvish is being overlooked today. I do think looking at ownership as it relates to pitching, I'm going to double check SaberSim's most recent update for the pitchers. But I think that you could make an argument that at a different time of the year. Whoops, that's not right. Oh, that's only Detroit that I've got crossed up there. Only Philly. Let's see. So I've got, Darvish right now at 15%. I think that's in the higher buy-ins. Maybe it'll be right. It probably should be right around there. It's okay, actually. But you go down and you see Manoah at like less than 10% with arguably the best strikeout stuff on the slate. He hasn't had the big strikeout stuff this year, but he's been just really, really good in real life and in fantasy. Just hasn't had that crazy strikeout game yet. And this is not the ideal matchup to do it, but I just believe in the talent, and I'm going to bet on talent all the time. And it's again, I just feel a little nervous enough about the Skubal situation, which is going to frustrate me because Skubal was my guy to start the day. I was very high on the Skubal pairing with double spending up with Rodon, with Verlander or something like that. I also do have Verlander and Rodon together quite a bit, which I don't think is going to be that unusual because they're both going to be pretty popular. I'm not playing Quintana, even though he's been good. Again, also the weather, but just don't like guys like that. Would rather take a shot on the young ace arms that I haven't seen before, like Jeffrey Springs. Not enough of a leash for me to play on FanDuel, but I definitely like him on DraftKings. And I think Ranger Suarez is a guy who belongs in the conversation. I just haven't found a way to quite get him in yet. And as bad as he's been, I'm throwing the Herman Marquis thing in there. It's just 5,300 for a guy who can do it. Those are just my gambling lineups. I have no interest in Boston personally, but go ahead, play them. They're a good offense. They're significantly worse on the road, especially so Boston plays most of their games, obviously, in what you call the second or third best hit. I guess you call it the third best hitters park. Probably the best considering the way that they all have played there for a while and they know how to use it. They're always going to hit the most doubles in Boston because of that green monster and joke of a field that they play in. But going up against a good pitcher and a good pitcher might be a stretch for how he's looked this year, but Suarez, Jose Suarez, I actually believe is talented. I get it. They've got guys who hit lefties. You can go ahead and do it. I don't see any reason to do it myself because it's such a huge stadium downgrade for them when they come to the West Coast that they can put up runs. Of course, these guys can all hit, but you're talking about they get to play most of their games in Toronto, New York, and Boston. And then, you get them anywhere outside of there. It's just always hard for me to click that button with them. But I certainly don't mind some of their bats. So I understand if that's what you want to do. I'm just not going to do any of it myself. That's where I'm at with Boston. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to get out of here. It looks like the questions are drying up. Let's crush it tonight. I'll be in Discord if anything comes up. Any questions, any thoughts, any ideas. And let's make some money, y'all. Good luck, everybody.